Well, the miracle of an ominous African dawn. The exciting thing about being on a live safari is you get to see both the sunrise and the sunset. Every day we're in search of lions and leopards and other creatures of the African bushveld. This is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
Five, four, three, two, one. You are live, you are live.
Well, we're out here in the middle of the Greater Kruger National Park on Djuma Private Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. There's been lions roaring, I've heard leopards rasping, I've heard elephants trumpeting, and you're on a live African safari. My name is Brent, and on camera I have the infamous Eggy this morning, and we are actually in search of leopards. So there was a mating pair of leopards very close to our the northern edge of our traverse area, and what I'm doing now is coming to see if they came to visit us. So I'm going to be moving through the bush, stopping, listening for that distinct call of mating leopards. So there's not much else in the bush you can confuse with that. I know James is on the other vehicle, has headed down south with Wium, and they're looking to see if Queen Karula, the dominant female leopard on Djuma, is around. And of course, the Nkahumas have been all over the place, so if we find lion tracks, we'll be on those as well. But it is sort of this wonderfully sort of dark, ominous morning. Normally it's either bright and sunny with beautiful, but actually, as Rebecca, who's in final control, said, it's a very much of an Armageddon-like sunrise this morning. And I just want to have a quick look at these tracks that are on the road, down at the hyenas. Lots of hyena tracks. So not the tracks we're looking for. Hopefully we will see some hyenas as well. And of course we're not only in search of the big hairies and scaries, we're looking for all the incredible creatures of the South African lowveld. Now we're just before true dawn. It's pre-dawn, so first light. So even though it is quite dark, we can see quite well, and the lights are actually there, not so I can see the road, so I can see tracks. So we're going to keep on our endeavors searching for some of the spotted big cats of the African bush. While we do that, the highly entertaining James Henry is waiting to bid you a good morrow.
Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to have you with us here on the Sunrise Safari. My name is James Henry. On camera today, I've got Wium and I must just tell you that I've been receiving some commentary from Wium this morning. My mic's hanging out of my head. Yes. Does it look ridiculous?
A little bit.
Okay, I will sort that out. I promise everybody. I'll just speak to you like this for now. Must just tell you that while we've been driving along here, Wium has been giving commentary on Mvula. And of course, that's who Brent is looking for. Mvula, a male leopard, around about 13 years, we think. And Wium was just saying how he thought it was a very clever strategy of Mvula's to have retired from his territory, travelled the world, and yet still maintained the advantages of a territorial male. And, you know, he's trying to leave a genetic legacy right now, and Wium thought that was a really excellent strategy. I had to agree with him thoroughly. And Mvula, as I said, and of course it's not particularly appropriate, sort of cliche to use, but I'm going to use it anyway, there's life in the old dog yet. Right. We are as live as Brent, which means we do want you to talk to us, please. Hashtag Safari Live if you're on Twitter, or questions at wildearth.tv if you're on the email. Our plan today was to head sort of to the south of Djuma and see what was going on there. Maybe Karula has come back from the south. Maybe she has not, but something will be interesting around the corner. There are some impala through there. It is still fairly dark, and as you might be able to see, as Brent showed you, the sky is looking a little ominous. Is it not, Wium? Look at the clouds scudding overhead. And as I got up this morning at 20 to 5, yes, everybody, 20 to 5. This is how early we get up to bring you this show. Well, some of us, VM didn't get up 20 to 5. I thought at 20 past 5, VM got up. I thought how very strangely warm it was, and looked up, and there was a blanket of clouds holding in the heat of yesterday. And it is apparently 16 degrees Celsius, and that is 61 degrees Fahrenheit. It's one of those easy ones to remember. I am, in fact, yes, you are correct, wearing a towel over my legs, just, you know, to keep out the morning chill. Alrighty, let us continue, Viam. Are you ready? Excellent, marvellous. As I was saying, 1661, nice one to remember because, of course, opposite numbers. The only other time that happens is when it's 82 and 28. There's your fun fact for the day. Your number fact for Monday. What is the date? The 14th today, I think, is it? 15th. 15th of August, everybody. We'll have one more look at these impalas. Let me just get into a position where it's slightly easier. And then I want you to try and listen. I'll be very quiet. Just have a listen to the sounds of the bush. While that impala relieves himself, of course, obviously. I am the bush laxative. So you will notice basically that all you can hear is the wind and the rustling of the leaves as this front blows in from the southeast, and almost no birdsong. For the last 3 days I've been astounded by the lack of singing birds. I don't understand it. That flexibility, isn't it amazing? It does astound me how many animals are able to lift their back legs and scratch their ears. I wish I could do that, don't you? Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to scratch your ear with your back leg, perhaps while you were sipping a cup of coffee. When the camera comes off the animal onto me, it means VM is tired of the animal and we need to move on and see what else we can find. Hello, William Sosa. You're a relatively new viewer for us. It's lovely to have you with us. Thank you. Please, I keep reminding all of you, we love to hear where you're talking to us from, so do tell us next time you talk to us, William. You want to know what happens when the animals when it rains, what do they do? Do they go into shelter or what? Normally, yes, they do go and try and find some thick bush to lie in. Remember, that brings with it a risk for something like an impala. If an impala goes into some thick bush during the rain, it often means that they will be unable to hear what's coming to see them, or at least coming to eat them, and it's difficult for them to see. So if they can brave it out in an open area like this, it's better, because it means they can still see, and despite the blowing wind and the sort of noises and the dissipated smells, they still have some defense. If they go into thick bush, difficult to see anything, obviously, difficult to hear what's coming to eat you, and of course the smells are dissipated. But yes, they will seek shelter if they can, and certainly the big cats will go and find thick bush to lie in. Elephants too don't seem to be a great fan of sort of the feeling of water on their skins, so they will seek out thick bush as well. This is frontal weather though, and we very seldom get any meaningful moisture from frontal weather. Normally our rain, when it does come, or if it comes in great storms from the northwest, or sometimes from the south, but very seldom from there, which is where this weather is coming from. So sometimes it drizzles a bit with these fronts, but it doesn't tend to blast out of the sky with great enthusiasm. The deluge is unlikely to begin today. And there is a predicted deluge for this year. Of course, predicting the weather is like predicting the stock market. Some people will tell you they can do it. They are, in fact, just good gamblers. And it is much the same with the weather. Many, many variables that we do not understand. What's the weather pattern called again?
What weather?
the weather pattern that brings the wetness? El Nino. Yes, El Nino. That will bring the water. Louis DeLion, quickly before we go to Brent, who's got a nice animal for you. You want to know about whether the birds are being quiet because there's no World Bird Day. Louis DeLion, I'm assuming there probably is a World Bird Day. In fact, I'm pretty sure there is. I just don't know when it is. Let's go across to Brent and I'll find out about World Bird Day.
So our first creature of the ominous morning is a lovely herd of elephants, the least ominous creatures out here in the African bush. So there we go. They are in a bit of a gory thicket at the moment. As you can see, there's a large female feeding just to make her out. It sounds like there's quite a lot of them spread through these thickets. See, here's a little one just to the right and another sub-adult further to the right. The little one looks to be playing more than feeding, finding its feet. Little elephants are just so cute. They sort of remove the dark and foreboding feeling that we had earlier on this morning. I'm trying to use his trunk, hasn't quite mastered the art yet. It's quite windy this morning. That means quite a few animals are going to be a bit jumpy. Elephants can also be quite jumpy in these windy mornings, but these ones, from their body language, are perfectly relaxed. I think there's some more, if we go forward a bit, that are out in the open. Or about to be out in the open at least. There we go. So we're hello, Elise. Let me just roll back a bit. Another female and calf. I said it sounds like there's quite a few of them spread through the bush around here. From this time of the year, oh, there's another one coming in. The elephants are going to start showing signs of being a little bit malnourished, or certain elephants, particularly the old ones or the young ones. Now, the biggest threat to the younger ones is if mom can't get enough food, she stops producing milk. We have seen a few elephants aren't looking too well. These ones look in fine fettle, though. We are on the worst drought since the early 90s. In normal circumstances, the gory bush is not something the elephant is particularly fond of. But of course, now with the lack of food around, any edible bush is fair game. Now, Dina in California is wondering if an animal is giving birth during rain, will this be a negative start for that young one in its life? Not necessarily, Dina, unless it's a raging torrent of a flood. Most of these animals are incredibly resilient, even the young ones, and most species outside of the predators and primates are incredibly precocious, so they're able to run within minutes of birth, and it shouldn't actually affect their chances of survival. Okay, I've got some alarm calls up ahead. I want to have a look at those. Franklin alarm calling could be for a mongoose, could be for a predatory bird, but always worth checking because it could be for a leopard. Now, on these sort of dark, ominous mornings, you almost have the feeling that something nefarious is aplot. Is the hyena clan planning a coup? Are there new male lions sneaking in from the north to challenge the Birminghams? Of course, we don't know, but these dark mornings almost have that idea that there is nefarious behavior afoot. Okay, let's have a look now. This is where that Franklin was alarm calling, so I'm looking for birds of prey up in the trees. I'm also looking on the ground for leopard, but it could possibly be a slender mongoose. Not seeing anything just yet. I'm just going to go forward slightly and then switch off and listen again. So around that dead knobthorn tree there, that's where the alarm calls came from. But I'm thinking it was probably a bird or a slender mongoose because they're very relaxed impala off to the right. Just see them through there. They should be around there. There we go. There they are. So they don't look like there's a leopard close by. It's not to mean there can't be. But if a leopard had been disturbed of Franklin like that, the likelihood of them spotting it is raised exponentially. Okay, we're going to keep heading east towards the ominous clouds. Actually, just look how incredibly fast they're moving towards us. You can see how quickly they are moving. Incredible. Now, Michael's wondering if there's been any update on Shadow and her cub. As far as I know, Michael, they were seen a couple of days ago in Sibambili. But they haven't been in our traverse area for a while, and if they have, they've just crossed out. But as far as I know, the cub is still healthy. This is that area where the mating pair of leopards were. We're going to go nice and slowly through here, look for tracks, use our ears. Often it's your ears that find animals before your eyes. Temperature seems to be dropping as we get later. Now, Liz is wondering, why do green wood hoopers sound like excited wild dogs? Well, listen, not quite like wild dogs. Their Zulu name is Klegabafazi, the cackling woman. Now, the reason they have that very excited display and whatnot is that they are a highly social bird. So you'll find a lot of those displays and noises are all to do both with visual communication and audio communication between the flock. So they're very social, and you'll find that probably that very, very amped up display is part of their communication process. So those mating leopards were seen last night, maybe about 500 meters from here. So that's why I'm going really slowly here, looking for tracks. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the tip of the hill, and then I'm going to switch off the engine and just roll slowly down the road so I can use my ears as well So while we do that, let's go see how James is doing in the south.
We're in the deep south now, but we can't find nothing this morning. Wium, did you see anything?
No, I did not.
We did not find nothing, everybody. We just see trees. We can hear one or two birds calling, but otherwise, there's nothing going on here in the south. Hoping to find some tracks, but as yet, no tracks. Right, I'll stop doing that now, everyone. I'm sorry. I apologize profusely. Just can't stop myself. And Ernie T, thank you very much. You say that Bird Day was held in May. So, World Bird Day in May. We're some time away from that. This, of course, would be a bad time to have World Bird Day, because there are no birds around. And that is because we're just heading into the springtime, which means that the migrants are not here just yet. Please do keep an eye out. Of course, the first migrant to come back is normally either the Wahlberg's eagle or the yellow-billed kite. The latter is not very common in this area, but the Wahlberg's is. And so we eagerly await the flying cross, as they are known from their very symmetrical cross-like shape in flight. And hopefully we will see them dipping across the sky fairly soon. Now, we've come down here in the hopes of perhaps picking up tracks of the great queen herself, Kurula. We don't have them at the moment, of course. And she was seen yesterday crisscrossing over the boundary. So she'd come north into Djuma. She was at Treehouse Dam for a little while. Then she went back down south into Little Gowrie, which is the reserve to the south of us. Then she was found again coming north into Djuma and again going south into Little Gowrie. So she's kind of been weaving over the border like that, and I wonder if those cubs are not close by. She's clearly on the hunt for something, so she may well have killed sometime during the night, possibly on Djuma. And I haven't seen Shongile and Hosanna for some time, and I feel that it's due to me that I spend some time with them. Don't you, Wium? Mm-hmm. Yes, Wium also thinks so. Otherwise, as I'm sure Brent has said, this is a fairly blustery day, and so the animals will be seeking the shelter that they might also when it rains. Still, the sun has yet to pop up over the horizon, a very subtle pink colour on the east. Nothing too spectacular just yet. We're going to turn here towards Treehouse Dam. Anna Marie, you obviously remember a drought in this area from the early 90s when Wium was but a pup, I was still a teenager, and you want to know whether it was a particularly severe drought. It was. I don't remember traveling to the Kruger during the early 90s during that drought, but I do remember reports of it on the news every night. There's some zebra, everybody. And while we look at the zebra, and I'll just tell you a little bit about that drought, I remember the first time, I don't know why I was in the doctor's rooms, but I had a sniffle of some sort, and my mother took me off to the doctor. And I don't know how I remember that, but I remember somebody in the doctor saying how they'd just been to Kruger, and how the landscape, instead of being that golden brown colour, it was grey. And I always thought that was quite a good description of a drought landscape. Anna Marie, I think you'll find that that drought of the 90s was probably well worse than this. I think it lasted for more than a year. Remember, we've only had drought for 1 year now. We've had one bad rainy season, and although that will affect this landscape and has affected it profoundly, if we have a wet year this year, it will be almost unnoticeable. But if we have another drought year, if we have another poor year of rain, then there will be some trouble. You can hear a single oboe playing in the great cathedral of the Wild here. And that oboe is the grey hornbill. I'd love to tell you that I made up the term Cathedral of the Wild. I'm afraid I did not. but it's a nice term. Justin S., a nice one from you about my earliest memory of the bush. I'm going to talk to you while we drive towards Treehouse Dam. My earliest trip to the Kruger National Park, in fact, the one and only family trip my family ever did to the Kruger Park was when I think I was must have been about 5 or 6 years old. And we came with a whole family of, or a number of other families to the bush, and my folks had kids relatively late compared with their friends. They struggled a little while. You know, if you're going to produce perfection, it takes time. Not so Wium. And so we were always younger than their peers' kids. My brother and I were always younger. And I remember we came to the bush, and between my brother and I, we contracted the most awful state of gastroenteritis. We were vomiting in the car. We were bedridden for much of the time. We were deeply miserable human beings. And that is my earliest memory of the bush. And so it wasn't an auspicious start to a career in the wild. But that's a sort of amusing anecdote of my beginnings in the bush. But I remember the first time, and I've told you the story a few times perhaps, but I quite enjoy it, so I'll rehash it for you. The first time that I felt wow in the wild, I felt the touch of wilderness, the call of it, was in the Drakensberg Mountains in 1993. In the August, it was exactly this time of the year, and I remember this time of the year always for those winds and the different smell on the air. And I remember sitting on a mountain, looking down east into a valley, and the sun had just about set behind us over the Drakensberg Mountains, and this long thatching grass was waving in a breeze and just reflecting the beautiful light. And I remember thinking, yes, there's something here. And that was my first memory of wilderness. There's the sun, Wium. Look how nicely I have framed it for you. Exactly. Isn't that impressive? Come on, pretend you're vaguely impressed. Come on. He's unable to pretend he's even vaguely impressed, everyone. I mean, you couldn't have planned that better, could you? Very nice. So the sun has come up. I don't know how hot it's going to be today, but I don't think very, given this front. Oh, even nicer, Wium. Beautiful. And Rebecca says the prediction is 26 degrees. I'm not sure it's going to reach that if this front persists. As I was saying yesterday, we often get these cold snaps after the first sort of warmth at the end of the winter, and I'm sure that's going to happen. It was 30 degrees Celsius here yesterday. That is pretty hot for the middle of winter. Now, keep an eye out, everyone. We're into the area where Karula has been doing quite a lot of her, shall we say, population control of the impala of the area. It's been remarkable to see, I think, and many of you who've been watching for a long time will be able to tell me if I'm talking nonsense or not, that the size of prey that she's been catching since she's had to feed those two hungry little cubs has been markedly increased. I thought most of the time before she had the cubs she was killing steenbok and duiker, much less risk involved, sometimes young bushbuck or impala lambs. These days it seems to be almost always that she has killed an adult impala, sometimes a ram, often a female. And that obviously will feed the three of them far more effectively than a little duiker or steenbok. Right, we have arrived at Treehouse Dam, which is not exactly a raging lake of water. So we'll just see if there isn't something lurking in the mud there. And then we'll continue making our way towards this rising sun. Look, Wium, look at the great lake that is going to be when the deluge ensues. Let's see what's up here. There is not a drop of water left in this dam. There was a little bit, everyone, from the rain that we had about 5 or 6 weeks ago now. Well, when would it have been? Not actually that long ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. And there you can see a great dryness. Righty, we're going to go continuing towards the east there, see if we can pick up tracks of Karula. Let's go and find out how Brent is doing on the lion tracking, or perhaps the Mvula tracking that he is engaged in as we speak.
Here we go, the sun has popped up over the eastern horizon. No sound or peep of those leopards. Heard some more elephants. And the sun is beating away the clouds, removing the ominous feeling and putting a joyous, happy feeling in our hearts. So let's continue on, and hopefully we can find some leopards or some even lion cubs frolicking in the glorious morning light. Morning, Tasha Michelle. Tasha Michelle would like to know, how far would a mating pair of leopards travel? It's completely dependent. I think then with a leopard like Mvula, he doesn't really have a set territory at the moment. They won't move too far. But with a leopard like Tingana, if he's on his territorial patrol and a female wants to mate with him, she will just keep following him until her estrus cycle's done. So female leopards can move 2 to 3 and sometimes even 4 territories over. So they can move 4 territories out of their natal territory, out of their territory to mate. So you can see with mating leopards, you find them popping up, females in particular, anywhere the male might be. And females actively seek out the males. Okay. Now, no sign of the leopards. We might go look for the lions. We're going to keep checking our northern edge of traverse for tracks, also making sure the Nkuhumas haven't crossed north. I heard a lot of lion roaring earlier, but I'm afraid it sounded quite far to the east and outside of our traverse, but that could have been different lions. Maybe our Nkuhumas were being quiet and sitting fat and happy on a buffalo. So far, hippo tracks, buffalo tracks, civet tracks, gerbil tracks, but no big cat tracks. Lots of hyena tracks. Now this first hour from just before sunrise to about 45 minutes after sunrise is possibly the most important when looking for big cats. It's when they're most likely to be moving and calling. So that's why we're out at this time of the day. And as a lot of our regular Safari Live fans will know, come 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning, those big cats are very flat cats. So we're heading towards the Buffelshoek waterhole at the moment. But what I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go past the Buffelshoek waterhole down to our eastern boundary, and then I'm going to slowly work my way back west and zigzag my way through Djuma this morning. But positives so far. Well, you got one positive, one negative. Positive, no lion tracks heading to the north. Negative, no leopard tracks coming south. Ooh. Thought I caught the tail end of a lion roar there. Difficult with the swirling wind. It wasn't close though. Well, I have to catch the full roar just now to find out exactly where it is. Now, we're discussing, well, lions, leopards, territories, etc., and HKP is wondering, how large is a lion or a leopard territory? Now, very interesting, it depends completely on the area. So even within the Sabi Sands Game Reserve, we're up in the northern Sabi Sands Game Reserve, your average male leopard territory in this area is of over 2,000 hectares. So it's about 4,500 acres. And your average female is probably 1,000 to 1,500. It just completely depends. Now, if we move less than 10 kilometers from here down towards the Sand River, your average male territory is 800 hectares, and your female, 1,000 hectares, your female territories are 400 to 800 hectares. Now, the reason the territories are smaller around the major rivers is it's better leopard country and there's more food available there. Now, lions, in this part of the world, your average territory is going to be, for a male coalition, probably about 8 to 10,000 hectares, so about 24,000 acres, and a female probably 5 to 7,000, or maybe a little bit there, 5,000, it's called 5,000. Now, of course, this is always dependent on the area. Now, if we move, for example, down to the Western Cape and the Cederberg Mountains, your average male leopard territory there is 4 times the size of the Sabi Sands. It's 200 odd thousand hectares, so over or close to 500,000 acres. Now, it's all to do with prey density. So the more prey there is, the smaller the territories there are. The less prey there is, the bigger the territories are. So there's no set and fast rule when it comes to those things. But if we work on the area where we're based, your average male lion coalition is going to be looking between 8 and 10,000 hectares, and your average male leopard around 2,000 hectares. Average female leopard in this area is about 1,000 hectares. Karula's got one of the bigger ones. She's on 1,500 more or less. And Tangana's got a massive territory, probably the biggest male leopard territory in the Sabi Sands, and he's sitting, I think, around 3,000 or so. So there's no set hard and fast rule. And one must remember, a lot of animal behavior is rather area-specific rather than species-specific. So leopards here will behave differently in some ways to leopards just down less than 10 kilometers away on the Sand River. And it all depends on availability of food, pressure from other leopards, etc., and stuff like that. So I hope that helps explain a little bit. The one thing is you must learn in the bush, as soon as you make any hard and fast rules, then the animals will prove you wrong. Not if, when. Okay, so still good signs for lions. No tracks leaving. Now, one of my favorite roads to look for big cats is Hippo Pools Road, and that's my next route. I'm going to go all the way up to the eastern boundary, and then I'm going to come back down towards Buffels Hook on Hippo Pools, then Quarry Pan, back to the eastern boundary. Of course, these plans change if you find tracks, but it always helps to have a plan and also to have an understanding about the animals in the area you work in. Now, of course, a lot of it is in your mind already. You know what you're going to do. Well, a big Safari Live welcome to Ajit in southern India. Ajit's wondering, why do big cats attack people when you're on foot and not in the vehicles? Well, Ajit, they actually very seldom attack on foot or on the vehicle. It depends where and what you're doing. So the vehicle smells like diesel or petrol and oil, and we smell like deodorant and shampoo. But also, if I'm sitting down like this, the way a big cat's eyes work, it doesn't see me as an individual, it sees us as a whole, and it's a smelly hole that doesn't really bother it, and definitely not going to taste good. But if the lions were where that tree is here, and if I had to do this, and I had to stand up, oh, my ears are going to fall out, all of a sudden, that lion is either going to go, or it's going to run away. Now, there's a very important reason for this. So, human beings and lions evolved in Africa at around the same time, and reached modern form at a very close proximity somewhere between 500,000 and 200,000 years ago. Now, the dominant daytime predator is a human being. We're a dominant social predator, and if we see lions during the day, a group of men can kill them, especially if we put pressure, keep chasing them, we chase them. They have very big difficulty in dealing with it's a leaf running across the road with heat. But when it gets to sunset, there's this little thing in our bodies that says, oh, I must go home, I must go home. And it's actually an instinctive response from when we used to live on the African savannas, because as soon as that sun goes down, we stop being the dominant predator, and lions become the dominant predator. So lions at night is a completely different animal to lions during the day, if you're on foot. And one of the exceptions to this rule, although I would love to do it one day, is tigers. Because they're quite a lot bigger than lions, and they have a very similar habits to a leopard. Tigers are great man-eaters. We form part of their natural sort of diet. So, although I know friends of mine have walked tigers on foot in India, and I've actually been invited to go track tigers on foot in India, which I cannot wait to do one day. But it's also all how you react. So, this sounds ridiculous. If a lion charges you, and they do charge you, not very often, when you're on foot. Normally, they're charging you as a warning charge, telling you to go away. You're too close. Now, there's a very simple and safe rule with all big cats on foot. Noisy cat, safe cat. Quiet cat, dangerous cat. So if a lion's going and slapping the ground and growling and snarling, it's a safe cat. He's telling you, too close, go away. If a lion's coming at you and he's not making a sound, he's trying to eat you. So there's a difference. And also how you react to those situations when you're on foot determines the outcome a lot of the time. So if a lion charges, you got to stand still. You do not run. Whatever you do, don't run. So you shout, you clap, you throw stones at it, and generally that'll stop. Actually, most animals, elephant, hippo, buffalo, you can stop. Oh, some zebra. You can stop a charge with some well-aimed choice words during the day. At night, however, not a good idea. Here we go. And you can see how that black and white actually works as a camouflage. Now imagine if you're a lion and you only see in black and white. And if that zebra keeps dead still, it'll just melt into the mixed broad-leafed woodland. So I'm just listening to the Game Drive radio for a second. Okay, well, let's keep moving. No big cats around the pajama-wearing horses. So we're going to keep searching down here in the east of Djuma. While we do that, James has got the tallest beast, or the tallest living beast in the world.
Look what Wium is doing, everybody. He's being deeply artistic this morning. Wium, that is very artistic. Wium, of course, likes to be artistic around giraffe because they're not his favorite animal. This giraffe, a magnificent bull, standing on the eastern bank of the great Mlwamati drainage line, eating what would be very toxic to you and I, the tamboti tree. Some of the last remaining greenery. Was he eating a jackalberry behind there? No, it is tamboti he's eating. Now, tamboti has a sap in it, a milky latex-like sap that is very toxic to human beings. He's seen something. It's interesting. You see how his attention was arrested. What you seen there, fellow? Please let it be a leopard. You can hear the parrots calling overhead. I can see, oh, it's a nyala. It's a nyala moving. There we go. Beautiful bull nyala. And that was a Natal spurfowl walking left out of your picture. And there is his wife, Mrs. Spurfowl.
Morning mobile stations, Bernie from...
Ooh. Did you think it was the radio that freaked him out? Absolutely terrified by that nyala. What do you think's going on here, wildebeest?
There's a snake in the grass.
You think there might be a predator close by? I don't think so. I think he freaked out at that nyala, and I think the sound of Bernie going live on the radio there saying, "Good morning stations, Bernie from Torchwood." I think that gave him a bit of a fright. I'm going to sneak forward. If it wasn't for the fact that that nyala was walking exactly where he looked, I would have said it probably would have been a predator. Hello. Somebody called a classic Scorpio. You want to know about whether or not the animals would ever move on from here. If the situation became dire enough, if the drought became severe enough, would they move on from here? Very difficult for animals to move on from here if they are not programmed to do so, and if they don't have the physiology to be able to do so. Giraffe would move. Impala cannot move. They're not migratory. They're not designed to move. The wildebeest could move on if they wanted to. The elephants can move quite big distances. But remember that even though the Kruger National Park is a vast, vast area, it is still finite, and its climate is largely similar from top to bottom. So there's not really anywhere they can go. They could move within the Kruger, but the water variation in the Kruger is not great at all. Let's have one more look at the giraffe here. I know it's not your favorite, but this one is quite interesting, you see. Yes, he was definitely freaked out by something, but I'm 90% sure it was that nyala. We're also right next to the jackalberry that is fruiting. So we'll have a look what birds we can find in there just now. Don't see any tracks of the great queen around here. I was hoping to. Isn't that lovely? Not the longest eyelashes of any giraffe I've ever seen. He's obviously not been taking care of his lashes with giraffe mascara. Kathy, on the subject of male and female giraffe, you want to know if an adult female is smaller than an adult male? Yes, a cow is much smaller than a bull. The bulls reach up to 4.5 meters tall. Now, 4.5 meters in feet, if you multiply that by 3, gets you to roughly, well, 3.25, gets you to almost sort of 14 feet. So they get very tall. Females probably about 3.2 meters, so a good 2 feet shorter. And then their mass, the male's about 1,400 kilograms, That is 1,400 kilograms. That's many pounds. That is 3,000 pounds odd. And then the females, sometimes they're less than a ton, sort of 900 kilos, but normally probably about 1.2 kilograms. 1.2 tons, sorry. So substantially smaller. You can just see the golden light on the giraffe there. That's beautiful. Come on, Wium, isn't that beautiful? This is stony silence from behind me. Oh well, at least he's making a very nice picture for us. And still not much bird song, as you can hear, just the wind. That's enough, is it? Have you had enough? You found a bird. Very nice. There we are, the grey go-away bird. And while we look at him, he's been sitting in the jackalberry tree behind us. Justin S., you want to know what determines the colour on a giraffe? Justin, the colour on a giraffe and the patterning is purely determined by genetics, and obviously through evolutionary time, the patterns have been described and developed in order to help them, I guess. I suppose there must be an element of camouflage in it. We're not really sure why they should be patchy like that, though, in the same way that we're not really sure why zebra should be striped. Here's the tree that is fruiting so nicely now, and only the grey go-away birds that I can see in there. The parrots were definitely eating some fruit from here. And the monkeys have been spending a great deal of time in here. Justin, I wonder if the patterning on a giraffe is not a throwback to our evolutionary past, when the great saber-toothed cats perhaps roamed the area and did a lot more giraffe hunting than the current crop of lions. But it'll probably have something to do with camouflage rather than any other of the outlandish theories about thermoregulation that tend to pervade when people have a little bit too much time on their hands to think about outlandish things. Okay, so that's here. We had lion tracks going north into the reserve just behind us. We're going to see if we can pick them up again. I'm not convinced they were that fresh. Wium thinks they were relatively fresh. Wium is a fine tracker. So we're going to just check. But I do think that if they came into this area, they probably walked straight north out of the top. But we'll have a look and see. We might be lucky. If I can find a track, I will show you. Roughly the size of my hand. Zoe, we were watching that giraffe, and all you could hear, of course, was the wind. And even though he got a fright and he ran away, he didn't make any obvious sound. And you want to know what the alarm call sounds like? Well, they do two sort of alarm sounds. The first is a sort of a snort. It's not very obvious. It's nothing like the snort of an impala alarm calling or the bark of a kudu. And then if they're really alarmed, if they're upset and they're alarmed and they are very cross, they make a kind of groaning grunt. And it's quite disconcerting to hear. It's a little bit like a buffalo bellowing, but a bit higher pitched. And I'm not going to try and do it for you. But it's a fairly disconcerting and loud noise. And that's sort of in alarm too. And then of course we know that they speak to each other using infrasounds, so very low frequency sounds that are beneath the audible range for human beings. Now I don't know if they do that in alarm to each other. Perhaps the cows, which tend to occur in loosely aggregated herds, perhaps they alarm call at each other in low frequency, but I don't know. No more lion tracks around here. Aqua, as we drive along here looking for the giraffe's main predator, you want to know if the young males disperse quite far from their natal group or their natal home range. Yes, they do, probably fairly far away. and you want to know if they form bachelor groups. They will as youngsters, but as with many male animals out here, especially the bigger ones, often those are very temporary aggregations. So they're kind of temporary groups where the guys hang out together while they're growing up, and then when they become dominant, or when they want to try and mate and they assert themselves, they tend to spend more and more time alone or in the company of small female groups. So they don't form bachelor groups in the same way that, say, impala form bachelor groups. See if we can't find these lion tracks crossing this road. It looked like they were heading this way. I'm just looking deep into the boughs of that weeping boerbean tree. Michael, you want to know why Wium doesn't like giraffe? Wium has sort of... He's got various pet hates from now, at various stages. He didn't used to like buffalo, but now he does like them. And I think giraffe at the moment are his pet peeve. I don't think they do enough for him. He likes giraffe if they're being set upon by lions, for example. Then he finds them very entertaining. Let's head across to Brent, who I think has got some nice tracks to show you.
So we're trying to figure out a puzzle at the moment. Now, I managed to just spot the faintest lion track on the hard soil here, and it's only of a single lioness. So what I've just been checking, and you can barely see them, I'll see if I can show you one. They are quite difficult tracks, especially because there's just one. This is probably the easiest to see. Over here, you can see the back pad and the toes. Now, it's only a single lioness, so I've been checking around both sides, seeing if the rest of the pride were here. This is probably the single lioness James had. She had it not too far from here. I think she's gone to Buffalo's Hook Waterhole for a drink. But we're not going to keep looking for her. I'm going to look for the rest of the pride. I'm quite convinced they're in this area here. So yesterday, I went out tracking, and it's a little bit of a sad story. So we found those very difficult tracks yesterday morning. About 300 meters from there, the pride killed a kudu. And by the time we went back to those tracks and walked in on the Sunset Safari on tracking team, the kudu was finished and the lions were gone. But that is one of those things. There were lots of vultures around, but no lions. But they headed in the sort of northerly direction. Now, that single lioness, honey, she had quite a nice full belly, so I think she went back to feed her cubs. And then the rest of the pride are still around here somewhere. So let me just see if my suspicions are confirmed. Yes, they are. So you were with that lion in Yala Road North. There are tracks coming up in Yala Road North. So that's that single lioness. I want to find the other 4 and the other 5 cubs. Now, I might chat to James a little later, and I might go back to where she's keeping those cubs just to have a look. But I think for now, while it's still cool, the wind is blowing, I'm going to keep looking for the main body of the Inkaluma pride. Now, of course, we don't only look for lions and leopards. We look at all sorts of different things: trees, bushes, insects. Of course, not too many insects around with this drought at the moment. Now, Diana's wondering about an ominous prediction I made. It wasn't really a prediction or statement earlier on in the Sunrise Safari. And it's, what are the chances of another coalition of males coming into the Birmingham's area in the next 12 months? are there other males we know about in the area? There's a few up to the north, Diana, in the Manyeleti, but one must remember, there's this mass of the Kruger National Park to the east that we don't know what's happening with the lion dynamics there. I know on Nkoro they've seen a coalition of 3 young males a couple of times who are probably around 3 years old, but very skittish around the cars. So there is always a possibility that a new coalition will come in. Now, the Birminghams are in their prime at the moment. 6 to 10 years old is when the male lions are at their best. But you never know whether another coalition is going to come in. And that's one of the amazing things about being open to the greater Kruger, is that there is free movement. And one must remember, as sad as it is for us, remember when the Birminghams came and killed the Styx cubs, that is how lions control their own population. It is nature at its worst and at its best. You see him there. Don't fly, don't fly. He's got something as well. He's eating a caterpillar. No, he flew away. Naughty bird. Or he landed again. But a little bird party ahead of us. Yeah, center frame. The beautiful black-headed oriole. And above them, flitting are white helmet shrikes. He's cleaning his beak. He just ate a caterpillar. There you go, the white helmet shrikes. And then pops the oriole. Oh, on the road, here we go. There's a little bird party. We got white helmet shrikes. What are you guys eating there? And fork-tailed drongos. There's obviously, drongos. Such bullies. Oh, and the oriole flying through. And there's obviously something that they're eating on the ground there. Could be termites. Let's have a closer look. Let's try sneak a bit closer. Hopefully they don't fly off too quickly. Oh, just one drongo left. I'm very interested to see what they're eating, because of course the drought for birds is almost just as bad as it is for the antelope, with all the insects not being around. I think they might be eating harvester termites. And is it? Yes, okay. Let me just go onto this. Now I'm quite sure they'll come back as soon as we move on, but I just want to have a closer look. Yes, I think they were eating harvester termites. Now, I'm seeing if there's any left. So, can you see this hole here? We good? So, that hole there is from a harvester termite. The reason I know that is because of all these little grass seeds and dead bits of grass. Now, those are the rejects. So, basically, the workers go out and collect as much grass and whatnot as possible, and there's quality control at the entrance. So these are the ones that did not pass quality control, although I do see some very nice Eragrostis seeds in here, which is love grass, saw-edged love grass in particular this time. But I think what happened here is the birds found them. So as the birds would have started feeding on them, the termites would have sent a chemical signal to each other, and that would have caused them all to go down. There's a soldier. Come on, bite the stick. Oh, nearly got him. So what happens now is all the soldiers rush to the entrance of the hole. So not only do they have those incredible biting jaws, quite a few species of harvester termites also have either ammonia or even sometimes acid in those bites. Come on, bite it. He's not biting my grass stick. But shame. I think they've had a tough morning already. So that chemical signal that they send to each other sends the workers scuttling down, and the soldiers with their bright red heads and massive jaws, with that acid quite often and other things, ammonia, right up to the front of or the entrance to the hole. So harvester termites are also one of the few truly diurnal termites. They will operate at night as well, but they are able to operate during the day, and that what makes them quite interesting. They're very dark compared to sort of the white, almost luminescent, see-through termites you get that when you lift a piece of bark or anything in there underneath. The harvester termites collect grass and seeds, but what they do is they're quite dark. They've got dark stripes through them, so they've got melanin in their skin or in their exoskeleton, which is basically like sun cream. So they can work during the day and in the sunlight, whereas a lot of the other termite species can't, and that's why they stay in their mounds constantly. That's why harvester termites don't create big termite mounds. They've just got single holes, and they have different collection points that they use at different times. Okay, lions, this is where I think you are. In here somewhere. There's a white-backed vulture. But he's a bit far away. But I think, so this is the area where they killed that kudu yesterday. So I don't think they went too far if they had full bellies. And we'll probably see quite a few more vultures around here. It's still a bit early for them to start taking off. They're waiting for the day to warm up so they can ride the thermals. Hi, Aubrey. Aubrey said yesterday someone said we could eat termites. Could we eat them raw and alive, or would they bite? You can eat them raw and alive, but I always, if I'm going to eat a termite, especially a soldier, I recommend taking the biting bit off. Yes, they can bite if you put them in your mouth, a lot of them in your mouth at once, but if you're eating a single one, you can normally crunch it before it does. The best tasting of all the termites to eat are the alates. Now, the alates are the future kings and queens of the termite world, and they are the ones that come out of the ground and are called flying ants. So, while we continue to check where I am convinced the lions might be lying, let's go see how James is going in his search. I'm not even sure where he is at the moment.
We've come along the southern boundary here. This is where Karula was seen yesterday, and she crossed back south into Little Gowrie here, and I have failed to find any further evidence of her, so I'm going to assume that she's still over there, unfortunately. What we have over here is an interesting bush called a sickle bush. Now, the sickle bush, if you look at it from over here, has got some very nasty spines on it. Now, there are a couple of things to tell you about this. First of all, the fact that this is not a thorn, it is a spine. The difference being that it will eventually become a branch. Now, that's quite clever. If you're a tree, rather than investing in a sort of specific defensive mechanism, why not make your branches sharp? Because they're just as effective as thorns, but they also serve a function other than spiking things that want to come and eat you. So they will produce leaves like this, and eventually the spine will become a branch like the main stem. Well, it probably won't, because I think the elephants will destroy it before that happens. Then the other thing about this tree is that you can see it's been mangled by elephants, and most of the trees out here are mangled by elephants, but in the absence of elephants and in the presence of grazing pressure, these trees become monospecific stands of sort of completely impenetrable sort of thickets. And so in the area outside the reserves where the cattle have grazed the land flat, these trees have become really, they've become an enormous encroaching problem. And that's because there's no elephants to keep them under control. They're quite pretty though if you find them like this, and they've got beautiful pink and yellow flowers that look like Chinese lanterns, and that gives them their name, the Chinese lantern bush, unsurprisingly. Not bad forage for elephants, and also good, a couple of medicinal uses, one of which is the creation of an eye ointment from crushing the bark Nothing. I thought I heard the crunching of bone, but I think it was just leaves rustling against the trees. Yes. So the eye ointment made from crushing the bark, soaking that in water, and then pouring the cold decoction into the eyes. So if you have sore eyes, that's what you do. Now, I read that from a book. Whether it is in fact still used like that, I don't know. Certainly that's what it's been interesting walking with Herbert of late. He'll be back tomorrow, hopefully, because his mother is a traditional healer. So she's been using these plants, and he's been using these plants for his whole life. And so when you come along and you've read a book and you say, well, you know, this tree is used for that, he says, no, it isn't. And then he gives you a proper medicinal use, and best of all, he'll tell you how it is prepared. Hello, Chris Rogue. You're wondering about Stapelia gigantea, a plant that smells like rotting flesh, otherwise known as a carrion plant, and you want to know if we find them in this area. We do. I've seen one or two, but I can't remember exactly where. They like very shallow soils, fairly rocky soils, and you can find them there. I will show you a picture of one as soon as we get to the edge of the reserve here. And I haven't heard any further or seen any further signs of Karula, so we'll turn north over here. Now, Chris Rogue, let me show you your Stapelia plant. They are, well, they're quite interesting, I suppose. They're not beautiful, but they smell like carrion, and that's because they're obviously pollinated by beetles or moths that like to eat carrion. There we are. That is Stapelia gigantea. So you can see it's quite a succulent plant. It's got the succulent leaves, and they're the stinky flower. Stapelia gigantea. I always thought Stapelia a really rather appropriate name for a smelly plant. Not sure why. Okay, we're going north up Cheetah Cut Line now. That's the eastern boundary of Djuma. Brent has pretty much surveyed the north. He's covered the northern areas. He may have a surprise coming for you fairly shortly. So we're going to head back towards the west and perhaps check out Arathusa, because I can't find anything else around this area. Go ahead, Brent. Tracks of a wild dog. Okay, copy, thanks. I'll have a look. Brent is not going to follow the wild dog track because it doesn't look very fresh to him. But it's quite interesting. It's just a good idea to keep an eye out for it. Right, let's see what else we can spot down these parts. The light very flat this morning because of the clouds, so I'm not sure that, as Brent says, it's going to become that much brighter. And this tree makes me laugh always. It used to house a nest of little brown-headed parrots, and then unfortunately the wind came and blew off their nest. What was that, Jim? I think it was the fan on the car starting up, perhaps. No, it was a vehicle behind us. Okay, Justin S., you were wondering about cacti and whether we find them here. We don't find cactus here. In fact, there are no, as far as I'm aware, indigenous African cactus species. We have something else called euphorbia, and euphorbia is kind of the African equivalent. There's a waterbuck there. Our cup runneth over suddenly. 2 waterbuck, if you can believe it. Can you believe it, Viam? The amazing abundance. Shall I go backwards? There's one. There's another one in front of us, but we'll keep looking at that one. That one's just as good. And the euphorbias we don't find in great abundance here. We get one or two species here, the candelabra euphorbia and also possibly the rubber euphorbia. They're found both in the Sabi sands, normally closer for some strange reason to water in this area, but they are definitely arid adapted plants, very much like a cactus, thick and succulent and very thorny and spiky, but they're normally toxic. In fact, they're almost always toxic, and very few animals, with the notable exception of kudu, are able to eat them. Beautiful waterbuck calf there, cow, sorry, very pleased with her thick fur on a day like today. And we were having a long discussion yesterday about colours in the bush, and what's a good colour and what's a bad colour. You can see a waterbuck's an excellent colour. So if you come out here on safari and you're worried about being camouflaged, a browny grey is always a good colour to wear. And then, of course, the other plant that is similar to a cactus, as Yankee's girl has just pointed out to us, of course, is the aloe. We do have aloes in the area. I've yet to see one on Djuma, but we do have them around here. And an aloe quite similar in many ways to a cactus, I suppose, on surface value. You've got thick, succulent leaves, and they store water in those leaves. But, I mean, if you've seen a cactus and you've seen an aloe and you've looked at them for any length of time, the superficial similarities quickly give way to the obvious differences, but they are succulents in the same way that cactus are. Many, many waterbuck here, Wium. A great herd. Isn't that nice? And just watch what they're eating. I'm just quite interested to see if they're eating the leaves or if they're still grazing. So it's a good indicator of how bad the drought has got. These are grazers, ostensibly, and if they turn to browsing or eating dead leaves on the ground, you know that the drought has become very severe. But they still seem to be eating grass. They don't look skinny. They're looking pretty good, Nick. Difficult to see under all that hair, though. You see how beautifully hidden they are. If you zooms out, you actually can't see them. Isn't that amazing? That animal is not far away from us, everyone. Probably about, I don't know, about maybe 150 to 200 feet. And totally invisible when Wium zooms out. And Zoe, we were talking about succulent plants. We've been talking about the drought, and you say, could any of the animals eat the succulent plants to get moisture? They could, and they do, but they do that from normal forage as well. You know, those kudu that we see here, they're not water dependent at all, and they will, although they don't eat succulents here because there aren't many here, they will get sufficient water just from the leaves that they eat. So their kidneys are highly efficient. Many of the animals here have got very efficient kidneys, but yes, in principle, animals can certainly get water from succulents. But remember, many of the succulents out here have highly toxic sap, and I don't think, although aloe vera we know is not toxic to us in small quantities, I think if animals were to eat aloe plants too much, I think you'll find that very bitter aloe taste would probably harm them eventually. Eventually it would cause some kind of toxicity internally. There the sun has come out and it has bathed us in lovely honey-coloured morning light. And now it's gone again. Kimberly, you're wondering about waterbuck and whether or not they are found only in South Africa. They are not found only in South Africa. They are replaced by various other relatives as you go further north, but there are certainly waterbuck all the way into East Africa. Now, we've seen the waterbuck, we've seen impala and elephant this morning, but what Brent is going to show you now is going to make everything else pale to insignificance.
Look at this, it's the smallest, tiniest members of the Nkahuma Pride. So they're probably just under 8 weeks old, just under 2 months old. And Mom is actually here. Mom's lying just to the left of them under a fallen tree that we can't see. But it's nice and cool, so there. See where that little one's disappearing down to? That's where Mom is. And he's here all fluffed up, quite chilly this morning with the cold wind. Now, they're probably going to start joining the Pride on kills quite shortly, within the next 2 weeks or so. The others had already joined the Pride on a buffalo kill by this stage. So they've disappeared down into that little gully there, and unfortunately from here there's no visibility.
Back to the signal male line, head.
Now, what we can do is try and make our way around to the eastern side of the drainage line, but it's going to take me a little while. Now, the tracks of that single lioness we had earlier that went to Buffalo's Hook Dam and then back down again is definitely this female, which means the rest of the Pride are still where I think they are, down towards Inyala Road South, where we heard some contact calling early this morning. Oh, we can just make out the cubs talking. Just to that, come down into the riverbed a little bit a little bit to the right. There. Just make out an ear through that thicket. Okay, we're going to try to find another spot. Oh no, Mom's moving out, so let's just stay here. There she comes. And she's taking the cubs with her. Could we be lucky enough to see their first introduction to the rest of the Pride? Now the question is, how do we get there? Okay, let's go have a look. I think I've got an idea about where to cross this little river. Sunday, you think we can go down there? I think so. Let's go down here. No, I'm only joking. That's a bit steep. But I'm going to have to go shoot around to get to a spot where I can cross this river. And while we do that, let's go to James and see what he's up to.
We found more lion tracks, everybody. But we think they've crossed into Torchwood, the same male lion tracks that we had earlier. So we'll just drive slowly along this road. Wonderful that those cubs have been found again, that they haven't moved. I suspected they might stay in a... Oh, hang on. I will get hold of Aubrey now. I suspect that they might be in the same area because they ate a kudu, the lions did, around here at some stage yesterday. Or yesterday evening. So she was very full, and she clearly didn't need to go and hunt last night. So she just stayed with her youngsters, looked after them, read them a bedtime story, put them to bed. I'm sure they did some nursing sometime during the night. And now they are with you and us. I'm just going to ask Aubrey what that update was. I'll just turn the radio on so you can hear him. Orbs, can you go again with that last update? Something moving south from Sydney's dam. Just tracks. Tracks of a male lion heading south from Sydney's dam. Okay, copy, thanks. Those male lions, though, you know, they move so far during the course of a night that the chances of us finding them, well, they're never bad, but the chances of them crossing down over the reserve in one night are very good. Still, we might be lucky. I was hoping to find these two males in the clearings up ahead here. And it sounds like Brent is going round to try and find those lions where we were yesterday. Not easy. Just going to get hold of him quickly. Brent, you copy? Brent, if they're in the same area as yesterday, there's a route in from Quarry Pan Road. You'll see our tracks coming out from there, where that game path, where the road bends and the game path follows the drainage line. There's a route in from there. We're just helping him to try and get in there, because it wasn't easy yesterday. Wium, there are no lions in these clearings, are there? No. No. Would seem not. Alas. Alas. Yes, we could. We're going to do that. Wium told me this morning that he wanted to see Tingana catching mice. Of course, this is very odd, because well, I mean, it's just not something you wake up thinking about a great deal, but Wium clearly has thought that, and he has banged on and on about seeing a leopard eating mice today. And so we're going to head towards Arathusa from here and see if we can find Tingana eating some mice. Hello, Justin S. While we talk about the sad fate of whatever gerbil or mouse or sweet woodland dormouse that Tingana might eat, you want to know if an animal ever feels remorse for killing? No, I don't believe an animal feels remorse for killing at all. It's just something they do. It's an interesting one, because of course we know that, you know, even human beings we don't tend to think about it in the Western world, because we don't kill our own food. We just go to the supermarket and buy it, and very conveniently forget that whatever we're eating was a living, breathing creature at one stage, and it died as a result of us wanting to eat it. Now, I think as you go to, let's say, the next, well, what we consider the next cognizant or semi-cognizant part of the primate tree, we get to chimpanzees, and we know that they kill, there's some zebra there. We know that they kill monkeys. They hunt monkeys. Do they feel bad when they kill them? Do they understand the distress calls of those monkeys? Because those monkeys scream. I'm sure they do. Do they feel any sense of remorse, though? I doubt it, somehow. There's a very nice picture of a zebra, Wium. I often wonder with something like an elephant, and I've thought about it myself, you know, you do hear stories of elephants killing people, killing rhino sometimes, or buffalo. It's unusual, and an elephant just seems to be such a prescient and sentient animal when you spend time around them. And we know they mourn their dead. It's difficult to fathom that they wouldn't understand the death of another creature and feel something. Whether it's remorse or not, I don't know. I think it's a lovely question to discuss. But you know, was a house cat, for example. A house cat will often bring a decapitated corpse to show you, as almost as if to say, look how clever I am, which doesn't indicate any sort of sense of remorse, does it? Wium, does your house cat bring you decapitated mice?
No, she usually eats it herself.
She eats them herself.
But yeah, she's very happy when
She's very happy with herself when she catches them, yes. Isn't that lovely? Apparently I'm a little bit soft. I'm going to flick my microphone. Should be fine. Andrew, you want to know what the smartest animal is? Well, Andrew, out here the smartest animal is Wium Durenbrak. He's on camera today. Other than Wium, though, the smartest animal out here is a difficult one to answer. And it's very much along the lines of the question that we were answering before about remorse for killing. Intelligence, and I've been reading a lot about it lately, is not something that's definable. We define intelligence in human terms as an IQ test, which is a random set of tests that are designed to test your ability and your ability at understanding abstract logic. Now, that's only one form of intelligence, and we're now becoming very aware of that sort of thing. So, is a lion intelligent in terms of abstract logic? Almost certainly not. Are they intelligent in their way that they're able to work as a team and kill things much larger than themselves? Absolutely. More so than human beings? Probably not. But they have a different kind of intelligence in other ways. An elephant, I think, from a human point of view, from an abstract logic point of view, from a communication point of view, is probably what we would define as the most intelligent animal out here. But even those zebra that we're looking at now have an intelligence entirely appropriate to their way of life. And it's a very good intelligence, because if it wasn't, they would have gone the way of the countless millions of species that have gone extinct over the ages because they were unable to cope with the environment. So intelligence is an interesting one to talk about. But the IQ test, more and more, we are hearing that. And you see that scar across the back there, where the stripes don't line up? I think that's a lion claw that's got in there and sliced the skin, and it's healed nicely. But the stripes have been kind of misaligned and during the healing process. That's really quite interesting. Okay, we're going to carry on down the road here. So more and more we're discovering that the IQ test is not, it's a reflection of only one kind of intelligence. And we know that it takes all kinds of human beings to make the world function the way it does, or not function the way it does. One of those things, of course, EQ, or emotional quotient, emotional intelligence, which many of us, me included, lack in many respects. And some who are perhaps really dreadful at science and maths problems are particularly good at emotional intelligence. They understand people, they're able to read people very cleverly, and that's a different kind of intelligence that until very recently we didn't count at all. And still, especially in fact in the United States, the IQ test is the be-all and end-all of intelligence testing, and I think that's probably a major mistake. Now, out here, which animals have the highest human IQ? I think the closer you get to the primates, the higher that level of intelligence will go. And likewise with hyenas and with any other animal that has a complex social situation. So hyenas and elephants, two good examples of animals that perhaps have an intelligence of the similar kind to ours. That was a long and involved answer. I hope it made sense. Right, Brenty has managed to get around through that heinously thick block, and he's relocated the lioness and her little cubs.
So we're sitting on top of one of these little river systems, and I'm hoping that she's taking the cubs to meet the rest of the pride. Wouldn't that be exciting? I just need to be on the game drive. If just before you get to that large torchwood, you should, if you look to the south, you should see my mother on the edge of the skova. She's walking in the skova. Now, it is possible she could just be moving den sites, but I think she might be taking them to meet the rest of the pride. Wouldn't that be exciting to witness these little cubs' first interactions with their cousins and aunties? Okay, they're going to disappear behind a timber mound, so we're going to have to move a little bit. Morning, morning. You okay there, Xander? Okay, let's go. We're going to get around. I know some secret spots how to get into that drainage line. Now, Tammy's wondering how I knew the mom was there. I did see her tracks. Her tracks went to Buffelshoek Dam for a drink, and then they came back down to where James had them yesterday. So I assumed she went back to the cubs. Now, the rest of the pride, the last tracks I had of them were probably about 300 meters from here. Looks like she's going to give us a proper test, because this is a very difficult area. But fortunately, thanks to Mr. Mvula, the leopard, who I've followed through here quite a few times, I know a secret spot. Because you can't really continue on this bank, but we can get down. Okay, we can get one last visual before I need to do some serious driving. There we go. I'm really hoping she's taking them to the rest of the pride. That'll be incredible to witness their first introduction. Okay, so while we need to do some serious off-roading here, let's go back to James while I get through this big hole.
Hello everybody again. Unfortunately that lioness moving around a little bit. We have come to the valley of the great Mlwamati, and we're going to drive a little bit towards the north because I'm interested in where that lioness might be taking those cubs. Maybe we can help if we don't bump into, we might bump into the rest of the pride. And then we are going to go towards Arathusa and see what we can find there. In fact, just quickly look here, it looks like some tracks of Nyala. Very nice, Wium. Eastern side. Yeah, I don't think they're around here. I think they're probably around about where Brent is. There are lots and lots of people around there. So we'll go this way towards Arathusa. Normally, when I say halfway through drive that we're going to go to Arathusa, we don't actually ever get there because we find various things on the way. That might be the case today as well. Now these days always start out warmish, 16 and 61, but because of the cloud they never actually get any warmer. So I will possibly have to retain my coat for the whole drive, which is not particularly interesting tidbit of information to give you. The tree, everyone, you'll tell me if we need to link, will you, Wium, is a sour plum, a common sour plum, and I'm just wondering, it looks very leafy, and I wondered if there weren't perhaps some fruits, but I don't see any. It's like a sort of peach, if you like, a peach of the bush. Very sweet to start with and then sour, but it's also got quite nasty thorns on it, and you can often get rather horribly spiked by them if you are picking the fruits too close. Is that alright, Wium? There we are. That is the common sour plum. Ximenia Caffra. Ximenia Caffra. On we go. We get another one here, everyone, called the blue sour plum, and for those of you in the United States, you'll be pleased to know that its name is Ximenia americana. I'll Don't know why it's called that, but that's what it's called. Hello, Ellen the Zoomy. You're wondering about the signs of spring, and are there any of the trees starting to put buds out? You say it looks a wee bit green. Ellen, it's not very green, but there are trees starting to put out the buds. The obvious examples being the knobthorns. They're producing fruits already, or not fruits, they're producing flowers already, some of them, which is very nice. Long rachis, they call that. A rachis of sort of honey-coloured yellow flowers, very pretty. And then also the guarri bushes, the Natal guarri, which is not the most common guarri. They're making little flowers, and they smell, if you really get your noses in there, they smell like lilies, which is delicious. Okay, Brenty's back with the lions. Let's go back to him.
So we've managed to stick with her. The little guys actually came charging up towards us. I think this might be a new den site though, just judging by this ravine she's about to take them into. I think this is a good spot for her to leave them. We might be lucky enough. See, I can just make out her ears there. She seems to be checking it. We'll see if she keeps, no, she's going to keep moving through. So I thought this might be a good den site because she stopped here, she lay down for a bit, she looked around. I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to keep following that. This is a really difficult country. This is also where one of the... Oh, there they come. So the reason I think she might not be going to meet up with the rest of the pride is just the way she's moving and zigzagging in and out of the drainage lines. If she had crossed and continued through to the south, I think she might be looking for the rest of the pride. But at the moment, I think she's looking for a new den site for those little ones.
From Hunter's
Okay. Oh dear, where to next? So this is also one of the few places we have rocks on Juma. It's a little rhyolite outcrop. And it sort of cuts straight through, but you don't see the rocks in too many places, only on areas like this where there's a drainage system that's been eroded slightly. Okay, and I'm definitely not going to be able to go up and over and through, so I'm going to have to go round. Oh, if this is the new den, she's chosen very well. Okay, so while we try to find a way around to where she is, what did you see? Oh, let's go see how James is faring.
James has just found a bird, everybody. Well, it's not going to be as entertaining as the lions you're watching. There it is in there. It's a chin spot batis. You see it there, Vimpy? It's there. There, you got it? There it is. Just listen to it, everybody. It's going... You see it? Hooray! Well done, Vium. It's just gone. It's there, There. There we go. Well spotted. That's the male chin spot batis. Look how pretty he is. He goes... He's still there. He's still there. I know you don't want to follow him, but he's still there. He's on the top of this bush. You got him. That's it. Up. Got another one in there. That's the female. See the female? She has got the brown there, and she's also got the chin spot. The male doesn't have the chin spot. She's got a brown spot under her chin. The male you saw there completely without the brown. This is not easy, I know, everybody. You're probably getting slightly seasick watching us there. They're flying over the top of us. Very nice, Vium. More or less entertaining than the giraffe? More work than a giraffe. Fair enough. Right, on we go. See what else we can see. We're going to head down Philemon's cut line to the west. I'm not going to say where we're going anymore, simply because I'm not sure we're going to get there. Look at this. Look at the destruction rent by the elephants here. See that? And this is why, when I pointed out that Dicrostachys bush, that sickle bush earlier on, I mean, these are knob thorns that have been torn apart here. But when I pointed out those sickle bushes, you can see how, in the absence of elephants, the vegetation would be just a completely different shape. It might be quite a nice bit of chewing gum we can get there. Sorry, Rebecca, you're going to have to go again with that one. I was just listening to the Game Drive radio. Andrew from Vermont. Oh, are elephants the only animals that damage trees? Oh, they're the only ones that are able to do this because they're the only ones that are big enough to do this sort of thing. But the rest of them, no. No other animal is able to do this kind of damage because they just don't have the strength. This has been cut off by a saw. Now, what we want to try and do here, everyone, is find a piece of relatively moist bark that we can then chop and eat, because it's actually pretty good eating. I think this is probably a little bit old, though. Yeah, this stuff's a little bit old. But what you want to eat is this here. That, when it's wet, is delicious. It's not very delicious now. You want some?
Looks a bit dusty, yeah. Give me some.
You want some? Get him a good piece, everybody. He'll complain bitterly that we're discriminating against the camera department if I don't get him a good piece. On so, Wium.
We're actually listening to the meeting.
Yes. Wium is the union representative. Wium, I'm not succeeding here.
Make a hole in my seat.
I'm going to make a hole in your seat. Yes, there you are. He's dropped it, everyone. He's going with the 5-second rule, though. It's got quite a nice taste. That one's a bit old, though. Tanniny. Right, on we go. See if we can find another chin spot batis. Hello, dispatch. You say that there are trees out here that are zigzaggy and have no leaves but for at the very top. Do I know what they are? No, I don't. It wouldn't surprise me at all that there is a tree like this, but that I am failing to understand exactly what it is you mean. If you see it again, please tell us. I'm not sure which one you mean, though. And when you say zigzaggy, do you mean at a small scale or on a large scale? So if we look at the individual branches, are they zigzaggy? Or is the whole tree quite zigzaggy? Sorry, dispatch, I'd love to be able to help you there. But I cannot. There is the ziziphus tree, the buffalo thorn, which has a zigzaggy branch. Oh, look at that, Wium. Our cup runneth over again with impala. all the ladies, which of course brings to mind the Beyonce song, All the Single Ladies. I don't know why it did that, and of course that should never be sung on safari, should it, Wium?
No, never. Absolutely not.
Possibly not even ever.
It's not a garter to wedding.
No. Ooh, hang on. There's an impala alarm calling across the way. See, they've looked, they've turned to look. Let's just sit and assess the situation before we move. Might be able to hear a Cape Glossy starling going. But these impala do not look very panicked, and there was only one snort. It's not unusual on a windy day like this to have an impala making a snort of alarm, just because something they catch on the wind, or maybe a sound. Alrighty, let's move on around the corner here. What? There's a leopard on the screen. Oh, I see. You're being very funny. That's Wium Doornbrock's idea of a joke, everybody. He says that there is a leopard on the screen. Indeed there is. That is a leopard orchid. Well spotted, Wium. Do you think that's what the impala were alarm calling at?
Possibly.
Okay, good. Right, can we move on now? You happy for us to go? Yeah. That one is not eating mice. No. So we won't stop for long with it. As he said it, I thought, I know that he's making a joke about something, but I'm not sure about what exactly. And there it was. The leopard orchid. The oldest safari joke in the world. Second oldest, yes. After the zebra crossing. Here is Aubrey. Hier means Anik Walan. Ay kumangin chu. Itajika lega aratosa. Okay. Enjoy. Behave yourselves, please. They looked deeply shocked by my presence. Didn't they, Wium? They weren't very friendly to us. Aubrey's always friendly, but his guests looked a little bit bemused. Maybe they're celebrities. I don't think they are. Alrighty, around the corner we go. Hello, Rachel from Israel. I think my answer to this question would be the same as just about everyone else's in this area. Our favorite plant to eat. Well, mine, I'm going to ask Wium first to see if my prediction is correct. What is your favorite plant to eat?
Plants growing here.
Plants growing here. They don't have to be leaves, remember? Oh, all right. I was completely wrong. I was going to say marula fruits, which are very delicious indeed. If we're not talking about fruits, then ziziphus would definitely be the best plant to eat. Would you rather have marula or ziziphus, Wium? Marula is much better. So Wium said ziziphus, everybody. Ziziphus is the buffalo thorn. It's very good eating if you like salads and that sort of thing. It's not very sweet, but it's certainly edible. And yes, I would eat that over just about any other leaf here. But there's some very delicious fruits out here, and one of which, of course, is the marula fruit. And in January and February, in a year of good rain, we get very nice fruits from them. Very poor harvest there was this year on account of the drought. But on that, on that subject, and I've said this before, it's actually very, very difficult. There's a batelier, Wium, flying over there. It's very difficult out here to survive if you don't eat meat. So it would be almost impossible, I think, to derive enough nutrition from this landscape unless you could hunt. Eat the odd bird, eat the odd impala, that sort of thing. There are some tubers you can eat, there are some leaves you can eat, and there's some fruits. But there is not a great swathe of natural vegetation that is edible here. And the soil is particularly poor for agriculture, as we watch that unbelievably skillful bird floating on this north or southwesterly breeze. Isn't he amazing? It is just it's so special. And Bear, you're in Ontario, and obviously you're astute enough to know that these conservation areas do not exist in isolation of human beings. In our western boundaries, of course, we have an enormous number of people living. You want to know how the drought is affecting them? The answer is quite severely. They do struggle a lot, mainly the cattle. Cattle which represent, it's the kind of the investment program of many people out here. They invest in cattle, and in a year of drought like this, the communal grazing lands are turned to barren dust bowls. And because there are fairly unsophisticated methods of crop rotation and herd rotation, and nobody's actually in control of any of the communal land, it's a real tragedy of the commons situation where the cattle are starving. They're starting to starve, where the buffalo exist in this area probably in a greater density than the cattle exist outside, but because they live in a natural system, they're able to survive, whereas outside there, they really are struggling. So yes, the drought is absolutely affecting the local people. And it's one of the things that Michael Grover, who is, Juma is run by his wife called Candice, and Michael does a huge amount of work in the communities outside, and one of his big things that he's doing is instituting various grazing programs so that the cattle don't have to be reduced, but that they're moved in a much more sort of sensible fashion so that they can survive better. Because of the methods of cattle husbandry, if you like, are perfectly suited to much lower densities of people, but not to the densities that there are now. The sun's come out a bit. Mobile Paddy, absolutely. We talk a lot about would we interfere in a drought, would we interfere with animals who are struggling with the drought, and you say if the endangered species of this area, so cheetah, wild dog, and perhaps the two rhino species, the white and the black rhino, if the drought became so severe that it affected them, would we intervene? I suspect yes, but remember that for wild dogs and cheetah, a drought is actually a time of boon. It's a good time for them because the herbivores become weaker, and so to a certain point it's actually quite a good time for them. They eat more than they would normally. Now that doesn't maintain. Once the drought becomes so severe and the number of herbivores drop and the nutritional content of the herbivores that the predators eat drops, well then obviously everyone's going to suffer. But for the moment, cheetah and wild dog, I suspect you'll find are having quite a good time of it, especially as they're able to hunt through bush like this. Rhino, I guess a different situation, and certainly were the rhino poaching numbers not to drop substantially and the drought to persist in this area and to the point that it started to hurt animal species like rhino, then I think you'll find that there would be an intervention, certainly perhaps of salt licks. I mean, it's very difficult to feed a rhino or a population of rhino in an area as vast as this, but I'm sure that somebody would come up with some innovative plan for how to help them. And just to keep you updated, Brent is still trying to get to those lions. He's in a horrendous block and he's just trying to move the car. It's interesting. Russell, you're in Chicago. Thank you for getting hold of us all the way from the windy city of Chicago, where I'm sure you're enjoying the summer on the lake. I've never been there, but I believe it's quite nice. You say, have there been any species that have gone extinct in the 100 years of the Kruger National Park's existence? That's a really good question. When did the quagga go extinct, Fiam? Not that it was ever found in this area.
Yeah, not too long ago.
Not. Yeah, but probably before the Kruger Park was instituted. So the quagga is the mammal, I think, the last mammal in South Africa to go extinct. And the quagga was a sort of, well, it was a zebra basically, and I mean some people say it was a subspecies of the current Birchall zebra that we get here, which just occurred in more dry regions. But I think that was the last South African mammal to go extinct in the late 19th century. Nothing has gone extinct mammal-wise in the Kruger National Park since then. But I suspect you will find that a number of maybe, I think very few vertebrate species, so very few fish or reptiles or amphibians, birds or mammals, but possibly a number of insects have disappeared from our notice before we even realized they existed. And I think that happens all the time all over the world. Many, many insect species go extinct before we've even described them. But no mammals, no. Nice question, that. And I always like it when people ask the question. I think often when they say animal, they mean mammal. But animal, of course, can mean anything from a sponge to an elephant. And it's always nice to talk about the little ones and their effect and how they are affected by the bigger animals and the droughts and the deluges in the sun and the wind and the rain. You see how poetic I became there, Wium? Yes. There's our 78th zebra of the day. He is standing picturesquely like a dressage pony awaiting to do his test at the Olympics. What do you think he's thinking about, Wium?
Tax returns.
Tax returns. It is tax season, that's correct. My mother's a tax consultant. Hello, Miss Lynn, as we consider the machinations of the tax man. You say, why is it that zebras' manes do not lie down like horses' manes? It's because they store fat in their necks. I'm pretty sure horses do as well, but possibly not as much. And they store fat there, and what that fat does is hold the mane in place. Now, whether they have that mane standing up because of the fat, or whether they have the fat there in order to make the mane stand up, I'm not really sure. But certainly they never get long enough to lie down in the same way that a horses does. Hello, Gloria. You don't want to know this question. You said your husband wants to know this question. Well, I hope you don't mind my answering it while you are listening, Gloria. You want to know about the lifespan or the life history, longevity of a zebra. It's much the same as a horse, you know. They probably lived to about 15 or 16 years out here. In captivity, you probably can push them to 20, 25, and maybe even 30. So slightly shorter than a horse, perhaps. But yes, you can definitely, they'll live longer in captivity, but I'd say 15 to 20 out here. He's a rather lonely, mournful fellow, isn't he, walking across the clearings on his own? I wonder if he spotted Tingana eating some mice. Do you think he has, Wium? I hope so too. He'd be quite relieved if Tingana was eating mice and not him. One more thing I'm going to ask you to show everybody, the Senegal lapwing on the ground there. There it is. Really nice picture of the Senegal lapwing. They had a little nest on these clearings a little while back, but unfortunately I'm not sure that the eggies ever hatched. I think they were probably eaten by a mongoose. Right, Wium's had enough of the Senegal lapwing. Let's carry on. Arethusa beckons not far from us now. Oh, a blacksmith lapwing. Wium, that is very ornithological of you. You can see a very similar shape to the Senegal lapwing, very similar strategy. I imagine their diets are probably slightly different, but there'll be substantial overlap. Just to keep you posted, Brent still looking for the lions. He got a little bit, I don't think stuck, but certainly the car was struggling to get through a particular area. So they are still looking very carefully and trying desperately. There are a few of them there, trying to help out. Hello, HKP. We've seen a lot of zebra today, and you say we don't normally. And what about wildebeest? Why don't we see more wildebeest? HKP, you're absolutely right. We don't see a lot of wildebeest. Zebra, there are quite a few in the Kruger. We do actually see them relatively often, much more than we do wildebeest out here. And the reason for that is that the habitat is really not ideal for them. The habitat isn't open, it's quite closed woodland, and also there's water everywhere, which means that migratory species like wildebeest will struggle to compete with non-migratory species like zebra, which can migrate, but they don't if they can avoid it, and impala. Impala out-compete just about everything. And so in the presence of artificial pumped water, with the wildebeest able to get away from that competition, their numbers tend to dwindle. And there are probably only about 200 of them in the entire Sabi Sands. Many of them were living on Djuma until the sort of middle of the drought. And they moved sort of south then towards the Sand River, I think. There are probably quite a few around there now. Right, this is the boundary between us and Arathusa. So we have almost made it to Arathusa. And Morning Glory, you say, where are all the buffalo gone? Well, this area never been big for buffalo herds. We do find them every so often. And the buffalo bulls have definitely been something of a mystery to me. I think they're all on Buffelshoek. I think there's a lot of water there still, and I think instead of lying around the pan at Djuma, which I'm sure they will do again, I think they've found alternative water up on Buffelshoek. Gosh, the wind is blowing and the car is a-rattling. Here comes a car. This is a horrible noise. Sorry, everybody. I'm afraid Brent has now got a flat tyre. That is not Brent's fault. I was very happy to be in Rusty in that area yesterday. She's got much better tyres than Wendy. Horrible, horrible block for driving off-road. Alright, let's try and get an update on what's going on in Arathusa. There is quite a lot of activity on the radio, but I don't think any established sightings. Right, I'm now going to speak. Morning stations, Arathusa, any updates for the morning? I'll keep you posted. Sorry about that. I was talking to Rebecca, not to the game drive, everyone. Rebecca doesn't know what's been seen on Arathusa. Let's try again. Morning stations, Arathusa, any update for the morning? Copy, thank you. No updates. I'm smiling because... Okay, copy, thanks. Hold on a second, everybody, sorry. Just one lioness and youngsters is sort of around Buffelshoek Dam, but we can't find the rest of the pride. No update on them. Just helping them with the update of where the lions are doing, because they do cross on here. So there's just a bit of an update there about Cheetah Plains. Sorry, I missed that. Comms not great. Birmingham's. Sounds like two of them. Somewhere near Cheetah Plains. Okay, copy, thanks. Right, that's the update from here. I'm afraid we're on our own. That's all right, we don't mind that. We're coming to a waterhole here called Red Dam, which is not particularly red, nor is it really a dam so much as it is a quarry. But when you call something red, it always gives it a kind of gravitas. Wium, there is our second grey go-away bird sighting of the day. Ooh, two of them. couple, possibly courting. Ooh, Wium, can you see over there? It's a fish eagle sitting on the side of the dam wall. That's fantastic. It's looking down, obviously, to see if there's some fish. Now, what's interesting here, we will move round, is that a fish eagle, somebody said to me yesterday as we were walking out, Connor said, do they only eat fish? How do they survive in a time like this when there are no fish around? They also scavenge. Now, I wonder if that bird isn't thinking about scavenging on something in the dam. Let's go and have a look. It's a big fish eagle, and for those of you who don't know, and perhaps our new viewers, the same genus as the American bald eagle, looks very similar, not nearly as big. Well, probably about 2/3 the size of a bald eagle. We'll just ease our way round. It won't be very tolerant of us getting close. So if it is the only thing in the water here, it would be nice to get another shot of it. Of course, Rusty's brakes will probably make that horrible squealing sound as we get into a position. I don't see anything in the water here. There we are. That is stunning. Isn't that nice, Wium? Are you sorely impressed? I might even take a photograph. Now please keep the camera on the bird. Don't take any pictures of me taking pictures. Yes, look, it still looks like it's 35 miles away, even with a 300mm lens. With your super zoom there, you've got full frame. Very nice. It'll do for that. Now, you can see if you are an American, or perhaps you're not an American, but you're an ornithological enthusiast, you can see how similar this bird is to an American bald eagle. Now, I'm just interested as to why he should be sitting there. There might be a few catfish in this water, but I don't think so because it went very dry. It's an adult bird, definitely. It's very unusual to see them sitting like this, everyone. He's got his feathers fluffed out to stay warm. He's rather a splendid fellow, isn't he? Now, if you look at him carefully, you can see that he does not have feathers all the way down to his legs. He is therefore not a true eagle. Now, I said that once, and I created great offence to some of our audiences, or some of our viewers, because they felt I was casting some kind of aspersions on the fish eagle and indeed the bald eagle. By saying true eagle, I just mean it doesn't belong to the genus Aquila, which is what the eagles that are feathered all the way down to their feet belong to. So it doesn't make it any less magnificent. Isn't he great? Look at him watching us. Sorry, William in Oregon, that radio is going a little wild in my ear. You want to know if something has ever led me to a big cat or a kill. What bird? Oh, birds that scavenge. Absolutely, William. If you watch vultures, you can often find something that's died, and that will lead you to lions or to leopards. Many times, many times. But interestingly, the reason I asked, there's a bird called a honey guide. And the honey guide is renowned for leading people to honey, but it's also renowned for leading people into snakes and into predators, which is quite interesting. And I've never been led into predators by a honey guide, but people like Herbert, for example, who've spent, basically their whole lives in the bush, and they will follow honey guides because they want to get honey, has said that they will lead you to snakes sometimes as well. So that's why you have to leave some of the honeycomb with the larvae in it for the honey guide. Otherwise, the next time he calls you, he will lead you to something that might do you harm. People, this is a fantastic sighting of this bird. It really is. It's not common. And Aaron, you want to know about fish eagle subspecies in this area? No, not officially designated ones. They tend to be just this one. It's lovely light now diffused through the grey clouds. I'm just going to open my bird app. And I'll find this fellow for you. I think he's amongst the vultures, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure why he's there. Never find him in my book. There he is. Now, he belongs to the... And John, while we look at the different sort of, if there are potential subspecies, you say is the best possible call. For many, many people, the sound of the fish eagle is the best possible call. I'll play it for you, everybody, just in case you don't know. Isn't that lovely? And to many people, that's the sound of a bush holiday right there. He looked a little confused by that. Looked up. Very nice. Now, I can't find any subspecies of these things. I'm pretty sure they don't occur in subspecies. But the genus is quite a difficult word to say because it's got 4 vowels in a row. It's Haliaeetus. 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 I'm just going to just quickly check what else they've been seen eating. So we know they eat fish, obviously. We also know that they eat, they will scavenge a bit. Specializes in fish, yes, we know that, don't we? Fish. Oh, and they will kill birds. I've seen them killing flamingos, actually. I've seen one fish eagle taking flamingo chicks. They will also eat other birds like red-knobbed coot, reed cormorants, which you get here, darters sometimes, grebes, and even white-faced ducks. That's quite interesting. So they will take birds. Quite a few other avian prey. All right, Brent is mobile again, everybody. Let's go and find out what the story is with him and whether he's managed to re-find those little lion cubs.
So you're only ever truly stuck if someone has to pull you out. If you manage to get yourself out without outside assistance, you are not stuck. You are just temporarily unable to move your position. But we had to jack up and put rocks under the tire. We had one tire that was off the air, or in the air. Oh, and all the vultures are waking up, the ones we saw a bit earlier. Now, while we were stuck, that lioness disappeared into that same ravine we were stuck in, but a bit far from us. So we're back on the edge of the ravine, trying to see if we can see her. Ephraim is looking from the other side. So hopefully we find the next Inkahuma den. Bush mum's wondering what age are these little delectable monsters, and that means I'm referring to the cubs. And what age will they be introduced to the pride? Well, they will probably be introduced to the pride. This is about the age. I think they're just over 2 months old, 8 weeks. So any time from now, they might be introduced to the pride. There's a spot, if I was a lioness, where I'd like to keep my cubs in a little thicket like that. So let's have a look if we can see into it. I also just want to go right down into the base here to see if her tracks pass through. We okay there, Xander? Look at that! A bush willow about to flower. Oh, that's probably only because it's on the river system, so there's underground water here. Okay, let's see. Are we okay? Okay. So, anywhere around here is an ideal spot for her to keep her cubs. There's lots of these little ravines and thickets, and there's very little reason for any other predator to sort of get right down in these things. I mean, leopards will occasionally. I just want to see if there are any tracks here. Interesting. There are no tracks, which means she's probably somewhere in one of these. I mean, there's a perfect example of what an area lioness would like for her cubs. So while she's away, they're going to be able to crawl into that massive fallen vegetation and be almost invisible once they're still. But we're going to give it a few more minutes trying to find her. Otherwise, good on you. Good on you, Miss Nkahuma, for finding a very good spot to keep your cubs. Now, this female has chosen some of the most inaccessible spots to put her cubs. And I think rather than risk being stuck again, I might go look for the rest of the pride. And there's another good spot there. But, ooh, there's a lot of broken car killers in between us and there. So I think we're going to have to admit defeat. We did get some wonderful views of those little cubs. And I'm going to head back to the road and see if I can find the rest of the pride. Okay. Hi, Lauren. Dobbs? Lauren says, how do the cubs know to stay at the den when the lioness goes hunting? Well, Lauren, I think a lot of it's based on instinct. She will also reprimand them if they try to follow her. It's a nice, tricky area. Thorns. Really nasty thorns. But I think, we have succeeded in not impaling ourselves, or nearly impaled myself on the area. Oh, next set of thorns. And then we're in the clear. Okay, sorry about that, Lauren. I just decided that I didn't want to be at one with an acacia nigrescens or a knob thorn. It can be quite painful. I've unfortunately many times been at one with such creatures, or such trees, and I'd rather not. So she'll reprimand them. She'll actually growl and snarl at them if they try to follow her. But then she'll positively reassure them when she wants them to follow. She disappeared in here, and it's difficult in there. Okay, so we're going to go see if we can find the rest of the Nkahuma pride. And we are back on the road more travelled. So the tracks of the other females off to the west of us, so we're going to head there. Sure. Well, at least Xander and I got our morning exercise. Lifting rocks using jacks. Okay. Now, there is a possibility she could just be in this area where it is too narrow to even think of getting a vehicle. But it's a good spot for her. It's a great place for a den. You've got Buffalo's Hook waterhole, not even 500-600 meters away. She's got access to water. It's a good area to hunt in. Just want to check one last place, see if her tracks cross. So she might have come through here. Now there's about 3 or 4 little steep ravines below Quarry Pan, all ideal spots to keep your cubs. I'm just double checking that her tracks don't pop up across the road. I'm pretty sure they're not going to. I'm pretty convinced she's going to be using one of these inaccessible spots to keep those cubs. Oh, there we go. Well, at least we did get to see those gorgeous little Nkahuma cubs. Now, the next question is, where's the rest of the pride? I think they're that away. And we're going to go have a look that away. Now, Fuzzman Sparkle says on a scale of 1 to 10, Brent, how cute were those cubs for you? They were a 24. They were just absolutely adorable. Now, the sun is battling the clouds. So I got all hot while trying to get us unstuck, but it is still quite chilly. And the vultures have started to get moving now that the sun's out. There's the old warm thermal to ride. Well, that looks quite interesting. I want to have a look at that in my binoculars. There are my binoculars. Oh, there we go. That is not vulture. There's a battalier in the blue sky there somewhere. He's turned and he's flown straight away from us. Sorry about that. He's given us a small gone. Beyond it, he's smaller than a dot now. I thought he was going to ride the winds towards us. Now, we've just seen that lioness move den sites, and Sharon in New York's wondering how often do lions do that? Now, Sharon, it completely depends. So there could be outside circumstances that cause her to move the den, the presence of a new coalition of male lions, an unknown a group of female lions, lots of hyena presence. So those are factors that might cause her to move her den. But normally, now that they're a bit older, she's going to move them more frequently. When they're younger, it's normally they can actually stay in the same den for 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But normally now it's going to be a couple of days, 3 or 4 days, move 3 or 4 days. Although I'm very convinced that those cubs, we're going to be seeing them with the rest of the pride in the next 10 days or so. They are getting to that age, about the same age as where the other cubs were introduced to the rest of the pride. Oh, there we go, that's better. Oh, hello. Sneakily, silently moving through the bushes. There we go, some elephants. Maybe if we go a bit further forward, we might find some a bit more out in the open. But it looks like they might walk towards us as well. There's a nice little clearing here that I'm hoping they're going to meander into. or meander past, more likely, by the looks of things. Now, elephants have the longest gestation period of any mammal, and Michael's wondering why. Is it because of the size of the baby? Well, the size of the baby and the size of the adult, so it's going to take a bit longer for them to develop into a functional being to be born. So, out of all the herbivores, elephants are the least precocial, and what that means is they are the most dependent on their mothers after birth. So, they probably need to be developed a little bit longer than other creatures. Now, when I say precocial, what I mean is, if we take a baby impala, for example, it is born and can run within a matter of minutes. An elephant can probably walk within 10 or 15 minutes or so, but it is completely dependent on mother's milk. Whether it's small antelope species or most antelope species will suckle, but they'll already be feeding on grass or leaves within a matter of days, whereas an elephant will take quite a lot longer. So Jason Curtis was actually wondering that. Well, the reason that an elephant baby doesn't need to be running or eating using his trunk minutes after birth is because he's got the protection of the largest land mammal in the world. Now, that massive female and the herd structure will defend that baby against lions and other things. Where there is a little impala, it needs to be able to run within minutes of birth because they are literally one of the favorite snacks during the summer months for hyenas, for lions, for wild dogs, for leopards, and they need to be able to have that defense mechanism to be able to escape. Now, speaking of babies and birth, Natasha in Ontario is wondering what animal I would love to see being born. Now, it would probably be one of the more difficult ones. I'm very lucky. I've seen, let me think, out of the animals we see here, I've seen being born, I've seen wildebeest, zebra, impala, nyala, bushbuck. I haven't seen steenbok or duiker being born. I've seen elephants being born. I've seen buffalo being born. So I think for me, and that's just a personal thing, it would be incredible, but near impossible, to witness the birth of a lion or a leopard in the wild. So a lot of the times when you see on documentaries or whatnot, a lion or leopard being born, those are captive animals and there's a camera set up in their den. To see it actually out in the wild is near impossible because they do choose the most inaccessible little spots, with good reason, to give birth as protection from the other predators. I've seen a hippo being born. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think it would or wild dogs, or hyenas, anything that lives in a den that is really difficult to see, dwarf mongoose. Any of those type of things would be incredible. Okay, so I'm going to head a bit further to the southwest, where I think the rest of the Nkuhuma Pride might be. And while we do that, let's go see what Commander Bond is up to.
Hello again, everybody. This is a better version of what I was trying to show you earlier. I was trying to show you the knob thorn. This is a red thorn, and the red thorn makes a really delicious inner bark, if you can get it. Ha 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 ha. Wium, you and I is in luck. Look at that incredible piece. Watch this. Ha! Now you can see obviously it comes off in very nice strips, so you can make nice rope from these. There you are, Wium. It's better, isn't it? Sweeter. He's looking very unimpressed. What do you think?
Like cucumber mixed with
Like cucumber mixed with?
engine oil.
A cucumber mixed with engine oil. I don't think it tastes like that at all.
The other one was better.
Okay, let's try this bit here. You want to get it as close to the surface as you can. I mean, this is really good for rope. The closer to the center it is, the more dead it's going to be. So that will eventually become wood. But at the moment, it is vascular tissue. I will give you some more. This one is closer to the edge. It's not the best one I've had, I must say. But these are normally a bit sweeter. And here you can see obviously why they're so good for rope. This inner bark, which you can plait together or you can twist it together if you have the hands for it. I do not, and basically I hash it up, so I'm not going to make rope for you today. This one is not the sweetest red thorn I've ever had. Engine oil mixed with cucumber, hey? Okay. No giraffe.
I'm not a giraffe.
You're not a giraffe. No, you're not, Vium. You are inescapably shorter than a giraffe, as am I. Now, this grass, everyone, is called Themida triandra. If you happen to own a hobby farm in South Africa, or probably anywhere in Africa, I think this grows up in East Africa as well. This grass is Africa's premier grazing grass. If you've got this on your land, then you know that your landscape is healthy. Themida triandra, or red grass. Doesn't taste any better than the cucumber / engine oil I gave you. Cucumber and engine oil.
Definitely cucumber.
There is some cucumber, yes. I haven't eaten engine oil though, so I'm not sure how much engine oil there was. Let me put my little knifey back. There we are. Oh, Brent seems to have found a great mixed herd of marvellous antelope.
Well, there's one zebra disappearing, but just off to the left you can just see a nyala's bottom sticking out. But there comes another zebra and an impala. Our zebra moving through the drainage system, heading probably out to the crest. Oh, we actually have 4 species here. Oh, the other one's going to be so hard to see. It's disappearing. There is an impala, a nyala, a bushbuck, and a zebra. I'm going to try to see if we can see. There's the nyala behind the bush. And I think if we go up and around to above them, we might be able to see all 4. Okay. Okay, so zoom above the impala, to the left a bit, center screen. There we go, number 4. Not the best sighting, but there is a bushbuck there. And then if we go a bit further forward, we've got the impala in the foreground, the zebra, and then the nyala. There's an impala ram, and to the left, and a nyala bull. Now, there can be quite some confusion to which antelope are rams and ewes and which antelope are bulls and cows. So basically the nyala is the cutoff point. So everything smaller than an nyala is a ram and a ewe. Then you get to a nyala and you have an nyala bull and a nyala ewe. But anything bigger than a nyala, kudu, waterbuck, eland, is a bull and a cow. Why? I have no idea. Probably something to do with size, or it was just ordained to be like that. Impala just sunning himself. Still quite chilly, strong wind gusting about. So the animals will be on edge. You can see constantly listening and looking. Don't want to be caught unawares in this gusting wind by a predator. Well, Inyala and the impala and stuff seem to be looking further down the drainage. They could be spotting another impala, oopsie, or another Inyala, but I think it's worth going to have a look. So, Inyala Road South is one of my favorite roads, as we get to sit above this very deep section of the little river system that runs from Buffels Hook. Now, what were you staring at, Mr. Inyala? Are you staring at another antelope, another zebra, or could it be something a bit more fearsome? Or could just be focusing in that direction because it might have heard something. So let's have a look from up here. So you can see why I say we're right high above the river system, but I can't see anything. I think that Inyala is has been eating some hallucinogens. So while we continue to check down Inyala Road South, let's go see what James has got. Apparently it's quite big.
We're looking at elephants, everyone. There are 5 or 6 elephants here, and in the background you can hear someone is taking off from the Arathusa International Airstrip. That's what that rather strident noise is in the background. The elephants unaffected by this as they browse their way in a westerly direction. Zoe, I think you've asked a very good question here about boredom and animals, and do I think they ever get bored, and have I ever seen animals being mischievous because they're bored? Definitely young animals. You see them playing all the time, and I think they play because they're bored. The question is, why do they get bored? What's the point of them getting bored? And I think it drives them to play, and that playing, of course, then helps their muscles and nervous systems to develop fully. Now, in terms of adult animals, I think yes, some do get bored, and I think elephants are a prime example. There goes the aeroplane. Just going to wait for it to take off before I continue talking. It's a King Air. Ooh. So I think these elephants get bored, especially the young bulls, and they like to spend a bit of time around us. They come and they have a look, and they throw dust at us, and they shake themselves about a bit. They pick up, certainly elephants also pick up rocks and carry them and then drop them. And so often you'll drive along and find a big rock in the middle of the road, and then and you'll wonder how it got there. Now, for many years I used to wonder this until I saw an elephant bull, big elephant bull, real sort of 45-year-old adult, carrying with him an enormous rock, cradled in his trunk, and then he dropped it on the road in front of him and just carried on going. So yes, I do think they get bored. And I suppose we were talking about intelligence a little bit earlier. I suppose the animal that is capable of the most abstract logic is likely to be the one that gets most bored doing the same stuff. You're right there, Wium. Oh, and Rena, you say that animals get mental illnesses. Phew. Rena, you know, I mean, so here's a difficult one. Human mental illness, obviously a real problem for many people. And you need to ask yourself the question here, the nature-nurture debate comes in. Is mental illness a result of genetics or is it a result of environment? If it is genetic, you will find, I suspect, that animals who have mental illnesses will very quickly be bred out of the population because they will be unable to breed, or they will be less capable of breeding than others. For example, let's use something basic like depression. If an elephant was depressed, you'd probably find that it didn't have a great desire to mate, and if that was a result of genetics, well, then it just wouldn't leave offspring. And so those genetics of depression in elephants would be bred out of the population. In human beings, of course, that's not always the case. Because of the social pressure to have a family, for example, because of we don't necessarily have the same amount of competition for mates, you find that maybe those genetics are passed on where they wouldn't be in a wild population. So that's one part of it. So I'm going to say I think it's unlikely that there's too much mental illness in elephants, for example. Also, remember, if it is entirely environmental, depression or a mental illness caused by environmental effects, the animals out here have been living in these areas in these same conditions for millennia upon millennia, which means that nothing's changed for them. They live in the same way, that their diet is the same, so the mental conditions in which they exist has been the same for millennia and millennia. The same is not the case for human beings. Our environments have changed constantly all the time, in the same way that our food has changed and probably caused major problems with diseases, physical diseases like cancer. You'll find that our environment, the stressful lives we live, the go, go, go kind of Western lifestyle, and that pure, what do they call it? It's not puritanical, it is I've lost the word, it begins with a P. But basically that work ethic that says we have to work as hard as we can, the rat race. I'm sure that causes mental illness, certainly the expression of genetic mental illness that just wouldn't occur in animals. So that's my answer to that question. I think it's a really interesting question. But in the same way that our physiology is inescapably... There we go. I've just had a comment from Rebecca that says dolphins commit suicide when they're depressed. I'm not sure anyone's actually ever proved that, but certainly there would seem to be, that situation where dolphins and whales and other, cetaceans will beach themselves and die. Yeah, we don't know why they do that. Maybe that is a form of mental illness. Why am I struggling to say mental illness? Fascinating question. I think people, though, human beings, physiological and mental illness far more prevalent because we do not live in the environments in which we evolved, which means that all sorts of things are able to express themselves that wouldn't actually. And we're often asked, do animals get cancer? They do sometimes, but nothing like as frequently as we do. And I think that's got a lot to do with what we eat, and I think it's got a huge amount to do with the amount of stress that we willingly kind of put on ourselves. I'm not sure entirely what this fellow thinks he's going to be able to achieve by stopping where he did. Anyway. We are on the Arathusa main sort of driveway, if you like, so that's why there are a couple of cars driving down here. Alright, let's go and get an update from Brent, find out what's happening with those lions. We're going to head for home. I can smell the sweet scent of smoky bacon.
So there are no tracks of those lions coming out of that area. So they either flew or they're still in the middle of those impenetrable river systems. But hopefully they're going to make their way out during the sunset safari. But so absolutely wonderful to have all the nkuhumas and cubs spending most of their time on Djuma. Now, the biggest cat in Africa is, of course, the male lion. And in the world is the male tiger. But Susan in the Netherlands is wondering, were there any bigger cats in Africa. There were most certainly, and strangely enough, between lions and humans, we outcompeted them to extinction. So there were bigger lions even as recent as 10,000 years ago, and those even lived in Europe. They were called cave lions. They share a common ancestor with modern lions, but they were outcompeted by being solitary. So they were a leopard. It doesn't really compete for the same food source as a lion. Being smaller, they're competing for your stembok, your duiker, impala, very seldom as big as a kudu. So that is a leopard sort of thing. So lions generally tend to focus on much bigger prey, wildebeest, giraffe, buffalo, hippo, kudu, waterbuck, zebra. So they didn't really. So leopards and lions don't really. They do, but they don't really compete for the same type of prey.
Anton from Huntersman, we just lived.
Whereas cave lions and old saber-toothed cats that used to live on the African savannas competed. Well, speaking of, if you were a lion and you were looking at that site, the zebra and the wildebeest would be the two you would go for. So there's a wildebeest and a zebra. A lone wildebeest bull hanging out with the impala, and a lone zebra stallion also hanging out with the wildebeest and the impala. Now, more eyes, more chances of seeing lions. Oh, we've had some nice mixed groups of antelope today, and zebras. But talking back about the giant lions that used to live in these parts. So, as I said, they didn't go extinct that long ago. In some cases, and in Europe the cave lion survived to about 10,000 years ago, and there's incredible artwork in caves in France of those cave lions. Now, there were also giant hyenas that were about the size of waterbuck. So you had these, and you had running hyenas that were twice the size of a normal hyena with long legs and used to run around like wild dogs. They were too effective. And so they would wipe out or in theory, no one knows for sure, would wipe out the prey species too quickly in an area, so they had to keep moving, and that was their downfall then. But the larger species of cats were all solitary and were outcompeted by the social predators, namely human beings, lions, and hyenas. And you can't say with a definite fact that this is exactly what happened, but it sort of makes logical sense. That the social predators outcompeted. And one of the reasons lions probably became the only social cat was competition with the larger cats and with human beings and hyenas. Now, the giant hyena was also a solitary animal from the fossil record, the fossils that can be found, and just the general makeup of it. So, in terms of hyenas and lions and apes, it all became far more sensible to be a social animal. You're able to cooperate and able to take down bigger prey, be able to, in our case, forage more. So yes, Susan, to answer your question, I know I've gone on for a bit, there were definitely much bigger cats, but they became extinct. Now, Anna Marie, still sticking with the larger cats, is wondering, did Africa ever have saber-toothed tigers? Well, I think the saber-toothed tiger is sort of a human construct. It was more likely what is referred to often as a saber-toothed tiger is actually a saber-toothed lion, or a panthera relative. So yes, tigers and lions probably both share ancestry with the saber-toothed tiger, but there were many different types of saber-toothed cats. There's monster canines. And also, you've found that over the years, with evolution, a lot of the really big animals, like buffaloes and hippos and stuff, have actually started small, got really big, and then got smaller again to the size they are now. That seems to be the optimum size for them to take advantage of the environment they're in currently. Now, we're about to go, it's a very interesting period in the world because the seas are very high, and so it's causing quite interesting weather patterns. And weather patterns, even though we might not notice it on the individual, on the minute level that we're dealing with, if we take a step back and sit up there in the clouds and look down at these sea cycles, have a lot to do with how evolution progresses. So if we look at the last land bridge between Asia and Africa, if I remember correctly, it was about 30,000 years ago when you could walk from North Africa into Asia. The sea was obviously much lower, so the polar ice caps much bigger, but there's been times in the past where the sea's been much higher, and there have been almost zero polar ice caps. So the only history, I mean the only constant in the history of the Earth that we can be 110% sure about is change, and the rest is speculation. So we are going to start heading towards our breakfast. It's been absolutely fantabulous having you on the Sunrise Safari. Zander, aka Eggsy, and myself have thoroughly enjoyed being stuck, looking at lion cubs, and just having you all along on the adventure. Just to let you know, Jamie's off on leave today, so you're unfortunately going to be stuck with James and Brent for the next 2 weeks, but we will try our best to keep you entertained. But from myself and Eggsy, we'll see you on the Sunset Safari.
We have yet to find anything further, I'm afraid, everyone. We did see 2 steenbok. They looked pretty bored by our presence, so we left them be. They may have been in the process of a courtship. We didn't want to disturb that process, of course. Very delicate as it is with, well, all animals, but steenbok particularly. So we're making our gentle way home now. Wium pointed out that today is not eggs or bacon day, it is muffin day. So I always feel that Monday should be a celebratory day, so that you don't feel the misery of the day. Of course, Monday here infinitely better than Monday anywhere in a city where you have to fight with the traffic. Another great question. We're talking about mental illness, and Justin S., you say, could any of the prey species here suffer from post-traumatic stress syndrome? And because they're constantly sort of being chased and under threat. I'm going to say possibly, but I'm going to say again, less likely than it is for human beings, because nothing's changed out here. These animals have, well, I mean, it's changed to within a certain degree, but these animals have been trying to escape predators out here forever and ever, which means that their adrenal glands and their ability to deal with adrenaline and the stress of being chased is probably that much more sophisticated than ours. That said, let's look at those 2 buffalo that were nearly killed by the Nkuhuma Pride fairly recently. 4 lions trying to attack you, raking their nasty claws across your back and over your thighs, and then leaping on top of you and biting your back. That's got to have some kind of long-term effect, but possibly not a long enough term effect for it to be described as post-traumatic stress syndrome, where, you know, it has a long-term effect. Because I think if you were of a disposition where you did exhibit that kind of distress constantly, I think you'd be wiped out fairly quickly again. So I think, yeah, I would say no, not really. It's a fascinating subject. Mental illness in animals. Happens in, and interestingly also, I guess mental illness does actually happen in domestic animals. And again, because they don't live in environments that they've evolved to live in. So the stresses and strains of our human life, or our human lifestyle, I think eventually impresses on the animals. And that's also, of course, there's lots of inbreeding with fancy breeds of dogs and cats, which renders them, well, less genetically robust than others, I suppose. Quite like that term, genetically robust. I'll use it again. Right, we are nearly home. A little bit down the road before we get there. So we're going to bid you a fond adieu Ooh, that's a lovely sound. Thank you, Wium, for your efforts today. Well done. That was Wium's unusually large thumb. A big thank you to Rebecca in the final control with Kirsten McLennan-Smith. They well, thank you. Yes, Rebecca says it was her pleasure. And mostly thanks to all of you for coming on Drive with us, for chatting to us on a quiet drive. It's always such fun talking to you when there is not much to see. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.